The roar of the crowd was like a warm blanket, enveloping Michael as he dribbled the basketball down the court. Sweat glistened on his forehead under the bright gymnasium lights. He could feel the energy of his teammates, their trust in him as the point guard, the leader. Michael loved this feeling. He loved the squeak of his sneakers on the polished floor, the rhythmic bounce of the ball in his hand, the focused intensity in his eyes. He was Michael Jordan, at least that's what the local sports reporters were calling him. Okay, maybe not that Michael Jordan, but the Michael Jordan of Northwood High. He was only a junior, but college scouts were already whispering about his potential. NBA dreams weren't just fantasies for Michael, they felt like a tangible goal, a path he was already paving with every swish of the net, every perfectly executed assist. Tonight's game was against their biggest rival, the Centerville Cougars. The score was tied with only seconds left on the clock. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Michael took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. This was his moment. He had practiced this shot 1,000 times. He drove to the basket, faking left, then right, leaving his defender stumbling. He leaped into the air, the ball a natural extension of his arm. Time seemed to slow down as he released the shot. The ball arced through the air, a perfect parabola against the backdrop of screaming fans. Swish! The buzzer sounded as the ball dropped through the net. The crowd erupted, a wave of sound washing over Michael as his teammates mobbed him. They lifted him onto their shoulders, chanting his name. He grinned, a wide, genuine smile that reached his eyes. This was it. This was what he lived for. Later that night, after celebrating with his family and friends at a local pizza place, Michael was driving home, replaying the winning shot in his head. He felt invincible, unstoppable. The future stretched before him, bright and full of promise. He turned up the music, singing along to his favorite song, completely lost in the moment. Suddenly, headlights blinded him. A car was speeding towards him, out of control. He slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The world dissolved into a cacophony of screeching tires, shattering glass, and twisted metal. Then, everything went black. The bright future he had envisioned just moments before was now shrouded in darkness, replaced by uncertainty and fear. His journey to the NBA, so vividly imagined, was about to take an unexpected and devastating detour. The darkness was thick and heavy, pressing down on Michael like a physical weight. He tried to move, but pain shot through his body, sharp and searing. He groaned, his head throbbing. Where was he? What had happened? Slowly, fragmented images flickered in his mind, headlights, the screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal. The accident. It all came rushing back, a wave of terror washing over him. He tried to open his eyes, but his eyelids felt heavy, glued shut. He could hear voices, muffled and distant. Someone was calling his name. Michael? Michael, can you hear me? He tried to respond, to reassure them that he was still there, but his throat was dry, his voice trapped somewhere deep inside. He managed a weak cough, a small signal that he was alive. The voices grew louder, closer. He felt hands on his face, gently probing. He's awake. Get the doctor. The next few hours were a blur of activity. He was lifted onto a stretcher, sirens wailed in the distance, and he was rushed into a brightly lit emergency room. Doctors and nurses swarmed around him, their faces masked with concern. They spoke in hushed tones, using words he didn't understand. He drifted in and out of consciousness, the pain a constant companion. He felt needles pricking his skin, tubes being inserted into his arms. He heard the rhythmic beeping of machines, a constant reminder that he was clinging to life. Finally, as the initial chaos subsided, a doctor approached him, his face etched with weariness. He introduced himself as Dr. Miller. Michael, he said gently, you've been in a serious accident. You're lucky to be alive. He explained the extent of Michael's injuries. A broken leg, a fractured arm, several broken ribs, and a concussion. The doctor's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Michael's heart sank. His leg, his arm, his basketball career, was it all over? "We're going to do everything we can to help you recover," Dr. Miller continued, his voice reassuring. "But it's going to be a long and difficult road. You'll need surgery, physical therapy, it will take time." Time. That was the one thing Michael felt he didn't have. College scouts were watching him now. He had a chance to make it to the NBA. But with these injuries, would he ever be the same? Would he ever play basketball again? As the doctor left, Michael was left alone with his thoughts, the silence broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the machines. He stared at the ceiling, tears welling up in his eyes. The pain in his body was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. His dreams, once so vibrant and within reach, now seemed distant and unattainable. The accident had not only broken his body but had also shattered his spirit. The days that followed were a blur of pain, medication, and endless hours spent staring at the hospital ceiling. Michael was trapped, not just by his physical injuries, but also by the heavy weight of despair that settled upon him. He replayed the accident over and over in his mind, each time reliving the terror and the sense of loss. Visitors came and went, offering words of encouragement and support, but their words felt hollow, empty. How could they understand what he was going through? They weren't the ones whose dreams had been shattered. They weren't the ones whose bodies were broken. His parents tried their best to cheer him up, bringing him his favorite books and movies, but Michael couldn't focus. His mind was consumed by doubts and fears. He imagined his teammates practicing without him, getting better while he was stuck in a hospital bed, wasting away. He pictured the college scouts losing interest, turning their attention to other, healthier players. Sleepless nights were filled with tormenting thoughts. Would he ever walk normally again, let alone run? Would he ever feel the thrill of making a basket, the camaraderie of being part of a team? The answers, he feared, were all a resounding no. He started to push people away, snapping at his parents, refusing to talk to his friends. He didn't want their pity, their forced optimism. He wanted to be left alone with his misery. One afternoon, his coach, Coach Thompson, came to visit. He sat beside Michael's bed, his face grave. He didn't offer empty platitudes or false promises. He simply sat in silence, his presence a comforting weight in the room. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and steady. "Michael," he said, "I'm not going to tell you that everything is going to be okay. Because right now, it's not. This is a tough situation, the toughest you've ever faced." Michael looked at him, his eyes filled with pain. "Then what's the point, Coach? My career is over." Coach Thompson shook his head. "That's up to you, Michael. You can choose to give up, to let this accident define you. Or you can choose to fight, to work harder than you've ever worked before, to prove everyone wrong." He paused, looking Michael directly in the eye. "I know you have the strength to do it, Michael. I've seen it in you. You're a fighter. Don't let this accident take that away from you." Coach Thompson's words resonated with Michael, a small spark of hope flickering in the darkness. But the doubt was still there, a persistent voice whispering in his ear, telling him that it was too late, that he was finished. The battle within him had just begun. The question was, who would win? The despair that threatened to consume him, or the flicker of hope that Coach Thompson had ignited? The first few weeks after Coach Thompson's visit were a constant tug-of-war between hope and despair. Michael would have moments where he felt a surge of determination, a renewed belief that he could overcome his injuries. He would visualize himself back on the court, making shots, leading his team to victory. But then, the pain would return, a sharp reminder of his physical limitations. Doubts would creep back in, whispering insidious thoughts in his ear. "You're fooling yourself," they would say. "You'll never be the same. Just give up." His parents, seeing his struggles, tried to find ways to lift his spirits. His mom would sit by his bedside, reading aloud from his favorite books, her voice soothing and comforting. His dad would tell him stories about athletes who had overcome adversity, inspiring tales of resilience and determination. His friends, despite being initially pushed away, refused to give up on him. They started visiting him regularly, bringing him video games, sharing funny stories, and simply offering their unwavering support. They understood that he was hurting, and they were there to help him through it, no matter what. One day, his best friend, David, brought him a basketball. He propped it up against the wall, within Michael's reach. "Just so you don't forget what it looks like," David said with a wry smile. Michael stared at the basketball, its familiar texture and weight triggering a flood of memories. He reached out and touched it, his fingers tracing the worn seams. It felt like an old friend, a reminder of who he was and what he loved. That night, Michael had a dream. He was back on the court, playing the game he loved. He was running, jumping, and shooting with effortless grace. He felt strong, healthy, and confident. The crowd was cheering, his teammates were celebrating, and he was soaring. He woke up with a jolt, his heart pounding in his chest. The dream felt so real, so vivid. It was a glimpse of what he could still achieve if he was willing to fight for it. He looked at the basketball propped against the wall, a symbol of his past and a beacon of hope for his future. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The road to recovery would be long and arduous. But for the first time since the accident, Michael felt a genuine sense of hope, a belief that he could overcome his adversity and reclaim his dream. He knew he had a long way to go, but he was finally ready to take the first step. He would start with physical therapy the next day, determined to give it his all. He would not let this accident define him. He would define himself. The first day of physical therapy was brutal. Michael was wheeled into a sterile, brightly lit room filled with strange machines and equipment. He met his physical therapist, Sarah, a kind but firm woman with a no-nonsense attitude. Sarah explained the plan, a series of exercises designed to strengthen his weakened muscles, improve his range of motion, and gradually help him regain his ability to walk. Michael was eager to get started, but the pain was almost unbearable. Simple exercises like lifting his leg or bending his arm felt like monumental tasks. He groaned and gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. He wanted to quit, to give up, but Sarah wouldn't let him. "I know it hurts, Michael," she said, her voice firm but encouraging. "But you have to push yourself. The more you work, the stronger you'll get." She reminded him of his dream, of his desire to play basketball again. She told him that every small step he took in therapy was a step closer to achieving that dream. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Michael continued to attend physical therapy, pushing himself harder each day. There were setbacks and frustrations, moments when he felt like he was making no progress at all. But he refused to give up. He started with small exercises, like squeezing a stress ball to strengthen his hand. Then he progressed to lifting light weights, slowly building up his arm strength. He worked on bending and straightening his leg, gradually increasing his range of motion. Walking was the hardest part. At first, he could only take a few steps with the help of a walker. The pain was excruciating, but he persevered, driven by his unwavering determination. Slowly but surely, he began to make progress. He was able to walk further and further each day, relying less and less on the walker. He started doing balance exercises, improving his stability and coordination. Sarah was amazed by his progress. She had seen many patients with similar injuries, but few had shown the same level of dedication and resilience as Michael. "You're doing great, Michael," she said one day, her eyes filled with admiration. "You're a true inspiration." Michael smiled, feeling a surge of pride. He knew he still had a long way to go, but he was finally starting to believe that he could actually do it. He could overcome his injuries and reclaim his dream. The pain was still there, but it was no longer the dominant force in his life. It was simply a reminder of how far he had come and how much he was willing to fight for his future. He was determined to make it back onto that basketball court, no matter what it took. Months into his physical therapy, Michael felt like he was hitting a wall. He could walk without the walker now, and even manage a slow jog, but his movements were still awkward and stiff. He tried shooting hoops in his driveway, but his shots were off, his timing was wrong, and his leg ached with every jump. Frustration mounted. He felt like he was working so hard, but he wasn't seeing the results he wanted. He started skipping therapy sessions, making excuses to Sarah and his parents. He retreated back into his shell, isolating himself from his friends and family. One afternoon, while aimlessly flipping through channels on TV, he stumbled upon a documentary about Kevin Durant, the NBA superstar. The documentary chronicled Durant's own struggles with injuries, including a devastating foot fracture that threatened to derail his career. Michael watched, mesmerized, as Durant spoke about the challenges he faced, the doubts he had, and the unwavering determination that fueled his comeback. Durant talked about the importance of staying positive, of focusing on what he could control, and of trusting the process. After the documentary ended, Michael sat in silence, his mind racing. He realized that he wasn't alone in his struggles. Even the greatest athletes in the world faced adversity and setbacks. The key was how they responded to those challenges. He decided to call Sarah, his physical therapist, and apologize for skipping his sessions. He told her about the documentary and how it had inspired him. Sarah listened patiently, then said, "Michael, I understand your frustration. Recovery is never a straight line. There will be ups and downs, good days and bad days. But you can't let the bad days discourage you. You have to keep pushing forward, even when it's hard." She suggested that he come back to therapy and try a new approach. She introduced him to a new exercise regimen that focused on improving his agility and coordination. She also encouraged him to start visualizing himself playing basketball again, to imagine himself making shots, running the court, and leading his team to victory. Michael took Sarah's advice to heart. He recommitted himself to therapy, pushing himself harder than ever before. He started visualizing his success, focusing on the positive, and trusting the process. Slowly but surely, he began to see improvement. His movements became smoother, his shots became more accurate, and his leg felt stronger. He was still a long way from being back to his old self, but he was finally moving in the right direction. The documentary about Kevin Durant had given him the spark he needed to reignite his passion and recommit himself to his dream. He knew the road ahead would be long and challenging, but he was ready to face it head-on. He was determined to make his comeback story even more inspiring than Kevin Durant's. As Michael continued his therapy, Sarah arranged for him to meet someone special, a former professional basketball player named John Baker. John had a promising NBA career ahead of him when a motorcycle accident left him with a severe knee injury, forcing him into early retirement. Michael was nervous about meeting John. He didn't know what to expect. He imagined a bitter, resentful man, consumed by what could have been. But when he met John, he was surprised. John was warm, friendly, and surprisingly optimistic. He greeted Michael with a firm handshake and a genuine smile. They sat down in a quiet corner of the therapy center, and John began to share his story. He talked about the accident, the pain, the frustration, and the despair he felt when he realized his basketball career was over. "It was the darkest time of my life," John said, his voice tinged with sadness. "I felt like I had lost everything. My identity, my purpose, my dream." He went on to describe the long and difficult road to recovery, the physical therapy, the surgeries, and the mental and emotional challenges he faced. He talked about the support he received from his family, friends, and coaches, and how they helped him get through the darkest days. "But the most important thing," John said, looking Michael directly in the eye, "was my own decision to never give up. I knew I might never play basketball again, but I refused to let the accident define me. I decided to focus on what I could control, to work hard, and to find a new purpose in my life." John eventually became a successful sports commentator, using his knowledge and passion for the game to inspire others. He told Michael that his injury, while devastating, had also given him a new perspective on life, a deeper appreciation for what he had, and a greater empathy for others who were struggling. "Michael," John said, "you have a long road ahead of you, but you have the talent, the determination, and the support system to make it back. Don't let this accident steal your dream. Use it as an opportunity to become stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate." John's words resonated deeply with Michael. He realized that his injury didn't have to be the end of his story. It could be a new beginning, a chance to prove to himself and the world that he was capable of overcoming anything. He thanked John for sharing his story and for giving him the inspiration he needed to keep fighting. As he left the therapy center that day, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose and an unwavering belief in himself. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it head-on, armed with the wisdom and encouragement he had received from John Baker. He would not let his injury define him. He would define himself, and he would do it on his own terms. The meeting with John Baker marked a turning point in Michael's recovery. He woke up the next morning with a newfound sense of purpose and a burning desire to prove everyone wrong. He was no longer just going through the motions, he was determined to attack his therapy with unwavering intensity. He started setting small, achievable goals for himself. He would focus on improving one aspect of his game each week. One week, he would work on his shooting accuracy. The next week, he would focus on his dribbling skills. And the following week, he would concentrate on his speed and agility. He pushed himself harder than ever before in therapy, embracing the pain and viewing it as a sign that he was getting stronger. He listened intently to Sarah's instructions, following her guidance meticulously. He also started doing extra exercises at home, working on his strength and conditioning. He also started paying closer attention to his diet, fueling his body with healthy foods that would aid in his recovery. He cut out junk food and sugary drinks, focusing on lean protein, fruits, and vegetables. He started visualizing his success, spending time each day imagining himself back on the court, playing the game he loved. He would picture himself making shots, running the court, and leading his team to victory. He would also visualize himself overcoming challenges, dealing with pain, and staying focused on his goals. His renewed determination was infectious. His parents and friends noticed the change in him, and they rallied around him, offering their unwavering support. His coach, Coach Thompson, started visiting him regularly, providing encouragement and guidance. Coach Thompson helped Michael develop a training plan that would gradually help him regain his basketball skills. They started with basic drills, like dribbling and shooting, and gradually progressed to more complex exercises, like passing and rebounding. Michael embraced the challenge, pushing himself harder each day. He was still a long way from being back to his old self, but he was making progress. He could feel himself getting stronger, faster, and more agile. He started playing pickup games with his friends, testing his skills and building his confidence. He was still a little rusty, but he was holding his own. He could feel the thrill of competition again, the joy of playing the game he loved. He knew he had a long way to go before he was ready to play competitive basketball again, but he was confident that he could do it. He had the talent, the determination, and the support system to make it back. He would not let his injury define him. He would define himself, and he would do it on his own terms. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was coming back. Weeks turned into months, and Michael's progress became increasingly noticeable. His limp began to fade, replaced by a more fluid and natural gait. His strength returned, allowing him to lift heavier weights and push himself harder in his workouts. His agility improved, enabling him to move more quickly and gracefully on the court. He spent hours practicing basic basketball skills, honing his technique and building his confidence. He would start with simple drills, like dribbling around cones and shooting free throws. Then he would progress to more complex exercises, like running passing drills and practicing his jump shot. He worked tirelessly on his ball handling skills, mastering different dribbling techniques and improving his ability to control the ball in tight spaces. He practiced his passing accuracy, learning how to make crisp, accurate passes to his teammates. He spent countless hours shooting hoops in his driveway, perfecting his form and building his shooting range. He would shoot hundreds of shots each day, focusing on his technique and visualizing the ball going through the net. Slowly but surely, his skills began to return. His shots became more accurate, his passes became sharper, and his movements became more fluid. He was starting to feel like his old self again, the Michael Jordan of Northwood High. He started playing in pickup games more frequently, testing his skills against other players. He was still a little rusty, but he was holding his own. He could feel his confidence growing with each game. One afternoon, while playing in a pickup game at the local park, he made a move that he hadn't been able to do since the accident. He drove to the basket, faked left, then right, leaving his defender stumbling. He leaped into the air, the ball a natural extension of his arm, and released a perfect jump shot. Swish! The ball dropped through the net, and a cheer erupted from the sidelines. Michael landed on his feet, feeling a surge of adrenaline. He had done it. He had made the move. He was back. He looked over at his friends, who were all smiling and cheering. He knew that they were proud of him, and he was proud of himself. He had overcome his adversity, and he was ready to reclaim his dream. He still had a long way to go before he was ready to play competitive basketball again, but he was confident that he could do it. He had the talent, the determination, and the support system to make it back. He would not let his injury define him. He would define himself, and he would do it on his own terms. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was coming back to stay. The journey was hard, but the small victories kept him going. He was slowly piecing himself back together, one dribble, one shot, one game at a time. The day Michael returned to the high school basketball court was filled with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He had been cleared by his doctor and Coach Thompson had agreed to let him rejoin the team, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. He wasn't the same player he had been before the accident. He was slower, weaker, and less confident. He knew he would have to earn his spot back on the team, and he was prepared to work hard to do it. His first few practices were rough. He was out of shape, his timing was off, and his leg ached after just a few minutes of running. He struggled to keep up with his teammates, and he felt like he was letting them down. Doubts began to creep back into his mind. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he would never be the same player again. Maybe he should just give up and focus on something else. But then he would remember John Baker's words, his coach's encouragement, and his own unwavering determination. He would remind himself of how far he had come and how much he had sacrificed to get back to this point. He would refuse to let his doubts win. Coach Thompson eased him back into the rotation slowly, giving him limited minutes in the first few games. Michael understood. He knew he wasn't ready to play a full game yet. He focused on making the most of his limited playing time, doing whatever he could to help the team win. He played tough defense, grabbed rebounds, and made smart passes. He didn't score a lot of points, but he made a difference. His teammates appreciated his effort and his positive attitude. Gradually, as he got into better shape, his playing time increased. He started scoring more points, making more assists, and playing with more confidence. He was still a little rusty, but he was starting to show flashes of his old self. The crowd cheered every time he touched the ball, recognizing his courage and determination. They knew what he had been through, and they were inspired by his comeback. One night, in a game against their biggest rival, the Centerville Cougars, Michael had a breakthrough performance. He scored 15 points, grabbed 8 rebounds, and made 5 assists. He played with energy, passion, and a renewed sense of confidence. The crowd erupted when he made a game-winning jump shot with just seconds left on the clock. His teammates mobbed him, lifting him onto their shoulders and chanting his name. He had done it. He was back. He had overcome his adversity and reclaimed his dream. He still had a long way to go before he was ready to play in the NBA, but he was on the right track. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was ready to take on the world. The comeback was real, and it was just beginning. He had proven to himself, and to everyone else, that anything is possible with hard work, determination, and an unwavering belief in yourself. As the season progressed, Michael continued to improve, gradually rediscovering his old form and showcasing his incredible talent. He was no longer just a good player, he was a great player, a leader, and an inspiration to his team and community. He led his team to victory after victory, scoring points, making assists, and playing with a passion that was contagious. His teammates looked up to him, admiring his resilience and determination. They knew that he had been through a lot, and they were inspired by his ability to overcome adversity. He became a role model for younger players, showing them that anything is possible with hard work and dedication. He would often stay after practice to work with them, offering tips and advice. He taught them the importance of teamwork, discipline, and perseverance. His story spread throughout the community, inspiring people of all ages. He was invited to speak at schools, churches, and community events, sharing his message of hope and resilience. He talked about the importance of never giving up on your dreams, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. He used his platform to raise awareness about the dangers of reckless driving, urging young people to make safe choices and to protect themselves and others. He became an advocate for injury prevention, working with local organizations to promote safety and wellness. The local newspaper wrote a series of articles about Michael's comeback, highlighting his incredible journey and his positive impact on the community. He became a local celebrity, recognized and admired by everyone he met. College scouts started attending his games again, impressed by his talent, his leadership, and his unwavering determination. They saw in him not just a great basketball player, but a great person, someone who had the character and the drive to succeed at the highest level. Michael knew that he still had a long way to go before he could achieve his dream of playing in the NBA, but he was more confident than ever that he could do it. He had overcome his adversity, he had rediscovered his game, and he had become an inspiration to his team and community. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was ready to take on the world. He played with joy, gratitude, and a deep appreciation for the opportunity he had been given. He knew that every game was a gift, a chance to prove to himself and to others that anything is possible with hard work, determination, and an unwavering belief in yourself. He had become more than just a basketball player, he had become a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of the human spirit. Michael's senior year was a whirlwind. College scouts from across the country flocked to Northwood High to watch him play. They were impressed not only by his talent but also by his leadership, his work ethic, and his inspiring story. He received scholarship offers from several top universities, each one eager to have him join their basketball program. He carefully considered his options, weighing the pros and cons of each school. He wanted to find a place where he could continue to develop his skills, compete at a high level, and pursue his academic interests. As the season progressed, Michael started to hear whispers about the NBA draft. Some scouts believed that he had the potential to be drafted, even after his injury. He tried not to get his hopes up, but he couldn't help but dream. He knew that the NBA was a long shot, but he also knew that he had the talent and the determination to make it happen. He had overcome so much already, and he wasn't about to let anything stand in his way. He continued to work hard, pushing himself to improve every day. He spent hours in the gym, honing his skills and building his strength. He studied film, learning from the best players in the world. He also focused on his academics, knowing that a good education was important, regardless of what happened with basketball. He wanted to be prepared for whatever the future held. As the NBA draft approached, Michael's name started to appear on mock drafts, with some experts predicting that he would be a late first-round pick or an early second-round pick. He tried to ignore the hype, focusing on what he could control, his work ethic, his attitude, and his preparation. He knew that the draft was just a stepping stone, a chance to prove himself at the highest level. He was ready to embrace the challenge, to work hard, and to make the most of whatever opportunity he was given. He had come a long way since the accident. He had faced adversity, he had overcome challenges, and he had emerged stronger and more resilient. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was ready to take on the NBA. The dream that once seemed so distant was now within reach. He could almost feel the squeak of his sneakers on the NBA court, the roar of the crowd, the thrill of competition. He had earned this chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. He would give it everything he had, and he would let the chips fall where they may. He believed in himself, and that was all that mattered. He was ready. The day of the NBA draft arrived, and Michael was a nervous wreck. He sat in his living room, surrounded by his family, friends, and Coach Thompson, watching the draft on television. The tension in the room was palpable. Every pick felt like an eternity. Michael's name hadn't been called yet, and as the first round wore on, his anxiety grew. He tried to remain calm, reminding himself that even if he wasn't drafted in the first round, there was still a chance he could be selected in the second round. His mom squeezed his hand, offering a reassuring smile. His dad patted him on the back, telling him to stay positive. Coach Thompson simply nodded, his eyes conveying a message of unwavering support. As the second round began, Michael's heart pounded in his chest. Each pick felt like a punch to the gut. He watched as player after player was selected, his dreams seemingly slipping away with each passing name. He started to doubt himself. Maybe he wasn't good enough. Maybe his injury had scared teams away. Maybe he was just fooling himself to think that he could make it to the NBA. Tears welled up in his eyes. He tried to blink them away, but they kept coming. He couldn't help but feel disappointed. He had worked so hard to get to this point, and it seemed like it was all for nothing. His best friend, David, put his arm around him, offering words of encouragement. "Don't give up, Michael," he said. "It's not over yet. You still have a chance." Michael nodded, trying to force a smile. He knew David was right, but it was hard to stay positive when his dream was hanging in the balance. As the second round continued, Michael's name was still nowhere to be heard. The television analysts started talking about players who were expected to go undrafted, and Michael couldn't help but wonder if he would be one of them. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He tried to visualize himself playing in the NBA, making shots, running the court, and leading his team to victory. He refused to let his doubts win. He would not give up on his dream. He would keep fighting until the very end. He had come too far to quit now. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was ready to take on the world, drafted or undrafted. He knew his journey would be different from most, but he was ready to embrace it. He would prove everyone wrong, one way or another. His story was far from over. Just when Michael was about to lose all hope, it happened. The commissioner of the NBA stepped up to the podium and announced, with the 58th pick in the NBA draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select Michael Thompson, from Northwood High. For a moment, Michael was stunned. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Had he really been drafted? Was this a dream? Then, the reality of the moment washed over him, and he erupted with joy. He jumped up and down, hugging his family, his friends, and Coach Thompson. Tears streamed down his face as he realized that his dream had finally come true. He had been drafted into the NBA. He was going to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. The room exploded with cheers and applause. Everyone was so happy for him. They knew how hard he had worked, how much he had sacrificed, and how much he deserved this moment. His mom hugged him tightly, whispering in his ear, "I'm so proud of you, Michael. You never gave up on your dream." His dad patted him on the back, saying, "You did it, son. You proved everyone wrong." Coach Thompson smiled, his eyes filled with pride. "I always knew you could do it, Michael," he said. "You're a special player, and a special person." Michael wiped away his tears and took a deep breath. He couldn't stop smiling. He was so overjoyed and emotional. He had overcome so much adversity, and he had finally reached the pinnacle of his sport. He walked over to the television and listened as the analysts talked about his story, his talent, and his potential. They praised his resilience, his work ethic, and his leadership. They said that he was a great addition to the Lakers and that he had a bright future ahead of him. He couldn't wait to get to Los Angeles and start training with his new team. He was ready to work hard, to learn from the best players in the world, and to prove that he belonged in the NBA. He knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but he was confident that he could handle it. He had faced adversity before, and he had always come out stronger. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was ready to take on the NBA. The dream had come true, and he was ready to live it. He would never forget the people who had helped him along the way, his family, his friends, Coach Thompson, Sarah, and John Baker. He owed them everything. He would make them proud. He would make himself proud. He would make the world proud. He was going to the NBA. He was ready. In the days and weeks that followed the draft, Michael was inundated with interview requests. Everyone wanted to hear his story, the story of the high school basketball star who had overcome a devastating injury to achieve his dream of playing in the NBA. In each interview, Michael made sure to emphasize the importance of hard work, determination, and perseverance. He talked about the challenges he had faced, the doubts he had overcome, and the sacrifices he had made. He acknowledged that the road to recovery had been long and arduous, filled with pain, frustration, and setbacks. But he also emphasized that he had never given up on his dream. He had always believed in himself, and he had always known that he could make it back. He expressed his gratitude to his family, his friends, Coach Thompson, Sarah, and John Baker, for their unwavering support. He said that he couldn't have done it without them. He talked about the importance of having a strong support system, people who believe in you, encourage you, and help you through the tough times. He said that his family and friends had been his rocks, his anchors, and his sources of strength. He also talked about the importance of setting goals, both big and small, and of celebrating every success along the way. He said that setting small, achievable goals had helped him stay motivated and focused during his recovery. He emphasized the importance of staying positive, even when things are tough. He said that it's easy to get discouraged and to give up, but that it's important to remember why you started and to keep pushing forward. He talked about the power of visualization, of imagining yourself achieving your goals. He said that visualizing himself playing in the NBA had helped him stay focused and motivated during his recovery. He also talked about the importance of giving back to the community, of using your platform to make a positive impact on the world. He said that he wanted to use his story to inspire others, to show them that anything is possible with hard work, determination, and an unwavering belief in yourself. He said that he was grateful for the opportunity to play in the NBA, and that he was determined to make the most of it. He knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to embrace it. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was ready to take on the world. He had overcome adversity, he had achieved his dream, and he was ready to inspire others to do the same. His story was a testament to the power of the human spirit, a reminder that anything is possible with hard work, determination, and an unwavering belief in yourself. He was living proof. The lights were blinding, the roar of the crowd deafening. Michael stood on the NBA court for the first time, wearing the purple and gold of the Los Angeles Lakers. It was a preseason game, but for Michael, it was the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and unwavering determination. He took a deep breath, trying to soak in the moment. He looked up at the stands, searching for his family, his friends, and Coach Thompson. He saw them all, smiling and waving, their faces filled with pride. He smiled back, feeling a surge of gratitude. He knew that he wouldn't be here without them. They had been his rocks, his anchors, and his sources of strength. He looked around at his teammates, some of the best basketball players in the world. He knew that he had a lot to learn, but he was ready to embrace the challenge. He was ready to work hard, to learn from the best, and to prove that he belonged in the NBA. The game began, and Michael felt a rush of adrenaline. He ran up and down the court, playing with energy, passion, and a renewed sense of confidence. He made smart passes, played tough defense, and even scored a few points. He knew he wasn't perfect, but he was giving it his all. He was showing the world that he was back, that he had overcome adversity, and that he was ready to compete at the highest level. As the game went on, Michael started to feel more comfortable. He started to make more shots, to make more assists, and to play with more confidence. He was starting to show flashes of his old self, the Michael Jordan of Northwood High. The crowd cheered every time he touched the ball, recognizing his courage and determination. They knew what he had been through, and they were inspired by his comeback. In the final minutes of the game, with the Lakers trailing by 1 point, Michael found himself with the ball in his hands. He drove to the basket, faked left, then right, leaving his defender stumbling. He leaped into the air, the ball a natural extension of his arm, and released a perfect jump shot. Swish! The ball dropped through the net, giving the Lakers the lead. The crowd erupted, a wave of sound washing over Michael as his teammates mobbed him. He had done it. He had made the shot. He was an NBA player. He had achieved his dream. As the final buzzer sounded, Michael smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He had overcome adversity, he had proven everyone wrong, and he had inspired others along the way. He knew that the journey ahead would be long and challenging, but he was ready to embrace it. He was Michael Jordan of Northwood High, and he was ready to take on the NBA. He was ready to inspire others with his story of resilience and determination. His NBA career was just beginning, and the future was bright. He would make the most of every opportunity, and he would never forget the lessons he had learned along the way. He was ready to soar.